Wherever you are around the world, welcome and thank you for joining us today on the Circle of Insight show. I'm Dr. Carlos. Today we're going to be exploring the psychology of estate planning. With us today is Laura Meier. She wrote the book Good Parents Worry, Great Parents Plan. Laura Meier, Esquire, is a top California business and estate planning attorney dedicated to guiding families with young children. She is the founding partner at Meier Law Firm, which she co-owns with her husband Joshua D. Meier. The Meiers frequently speak, write, and counsel parents on how to meet their financial, legal, and moral obligations to their children through proper estate planning. Let's welcome to the circle Miss Laura Meier. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm
This
excited
is really
to be
fun.
here.
This is actually a fun topic. I mean, people are probably saying, what is psychology of estate planning? There's a lot in here. Great book, a lot in here in psychology. But before we get to that, let me find out a little bit about you. So where are you from?
I actually grew up here in Orange County.
County girl, all right. And any siblings?
I'm one of 5 kids, and you know me a little bit, so you'll probably guess already I'm the middle. I find that middle children learn to negotiate when they're young to get what they need, so it makes a perfect upbringing for a future attorney.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing I know, one of the interesting things you were talking about was people ask you, well, how do you have a law practice and are a mom, and you have how many kids?
4 kids, and that's
Wow.
it. I want to make it
That's
official.
it?
I want to make the public announcement that is it. No more children, but yes. Yeah, so Josh and I, we have the 4 kids, and I do get asked that a lot, especially by younger women, and then just moms themselves who have maybe stepped out of the legal force and are thinking about going back in. It's a big balance, and so people want to know, how do you do that? And I always tell them I do everything 6 months at a time. You look at your kids' schedules, your practice, and you map it out for 6 months, and then you're flexible. And I have found that my schedule has changed every 6 months.
Every 6 months is scheduled?
Every 6 months it'll change. Children will have new needs, the practice will have new needs, and so I think just understanding and setting yourself up to be in a practice that's flexible and that values that you have a family, and that's what we were able to create at our firm.
That's amazing. Well, the other question that you brought up too earlier, we were discussing is, well, how is it having a law firm with your husband?
Some days are better than others. He says he loves it. I always think every man's dream, right, to be trapped with your wife 24/7. But it's good. I think what is great about it is there's a lot of transparency. So when we were at separate law firms, you would think even as lawyers you understand what the other spouse is doing at work. But I would get a little resentful. You know, what do you mean you're in trial? We've got the kids. I have my own practice. And now, if he has to work late, I always say, "Oh, thank you. Now I don't have to." So that part is nice. And then ultimately, of course, from a financial standpoint, everything's going to the same 4 mouths who are taking all of our money.
Yeah.
So our children.
Are any of these guys expecting to become lawyers?
You know, my daughter, our 4-year-old, she tells me she wants to be a lawyer. And so we're pretty sure, though, the 10-year-old will be a lawyer. When I tell him not to do something, he literally will stand with his feet apart and put his arms, in front of him and say, "Mom," and give his argument. So I think we have a couple lawyers in that brood. Yeah.
My daughter's funny. She wants to be like her mom. I said, "You don't want to be like Daddy?" "No, I don't want to do nothing." Okay. Anyway, interesting facts about estate planning. So is it really important to have an estate planning?
I think that estate planning is important if you own anything and you care about anybody. So if you're destitute and you don't care about anybody, I really don't think estate planning is important. But for all of the rest of us, it's actually one of the most important things, although overlooked, important things we can do for our loved ones. Giving them that gift of, I'm not just here today, I will love you and take care of you tomorrow, no matter what happens.
Now, I've heard stories of that they can take your child away without having the proper estate planning set up. Is that true?
That actually happened, and it's happened a few times. And it's not that the state wants to step in and take kids away from grandparents or aunts and uncles, but there was a family a few years ago in San Diego where the husband and wife were killed in a car accident. They left behind 3 beautiful little boys. And those children, just because there wasn't the planning in place, they were temporarily placed in foster care. And then as well, a few months ago, actually up in Los Angeles, similar situation. Mother and father were killed, and their infant daughter was rushed to a hospital in Los Angeles and immediately placed in the care of foster care because there just simply wasn't an alert system in place for the first responders to contact who they needed. So I'm sure, of course, that our friends at the state would do a great job and try and be there for the child. But once you're in the system and you're not in the care of your own family or family friends, it's a very traumatic thing for kids, and it is something that can be avoided.
That's the interesting thing is, we're not bashing foster homes whatsoever. No. But the interesting thing is, if they have an aunt and want to take care of them, they really have to go through a lot of hoops to get them out of that foster home.
Once you are in, it's very difficult to get out. I mean, I got an email from an attorney back in North Carolina saying, "Hey, Laura, there's a child of a client in temporary foster care because of the parent's death. Can you get them out?" And that's unfortunately not just a phone call. Because the state, once they step in, they have a legal obligation to make sure they do their due diligence and that the kids are safe. So it is better if parents can set things up in advance to take that burden off of the state and to actually set their kids up so they'll be with their loved ones in an emergency.
But it's a lot of hassle getting estate planning, isn't it?
I think it's fairly easy. There's a lot of great estate planning attorneys out there, and I'm a member of Wealth Counsel, a nationwide network of lawyers. I feel like I have some of the best colleagues in the nation as part of Wealth Counsel. And I write in my book actually about how to find a good estate planning lawyer and things to look for when evaluating a lawyer, because you definitely want to work with someone who is focused on estate planning. You don't want a situation where it's just, here's a document that you could basically get off the internet. You need an advisor and an advocate for your family who's really going to sit down and help you decide what's going to be best for your family.
And does it matter, does it have to be a lawyer from the state you live in?
You want to set up your estate plan usually where you live or where you own real property. And so we certainly have clients throughout the country. But if you like having that contact and that ongoing relationship, it is nice to have somebody who is local and who can be there for your family.
And people are really, anybody's susceptible to some of those tragedies you mentioned, even celebrities. We were talking earlier about, I think it was Bobby Christine Brown. That was a really peculiar situation. What's going on there?
You know, we would think that with celebrities, with their wealth and their access to attorneys, that they would be great estate planners. They're just like the rest of us. They are busy. They put things off. They don't think that anything could happen to them. And we see their stories all the time, all over the internet. And the Bobby Christina Brown case right now, which we've been following, it is very sad. She's a young woman. We all know her past and what she grew up with, some of the troubles there. And I think we were all sad to see that she's now apparently in a vegetative state or a medical coma. And I know we only get what the media feeds us, but in that situation, as an estate planning lawyer, I would suspect that she doesn't have what's called a living will in place, which is where you would just simply declare legally what you would want to happen if you were in a vegetative state with an irreversible condition and couldn't come back to live a meaningful life. In that case, you state that you would want to be let go. And really, that's a gift that everyone should give their family members, because when you're in it, of course, your family's going to be wanting to hold on to you.
Yeah, definitely.
Hello, my name's Matt, and I'm an addict.
My mom was addicted to prescription pills when I was very young, before I even turned 1.
Are you or someone you know struggling with alcohol or drug addiction? Has everyone given up on you or your loved one? The caring staff at Elite Care understands and treats you as a whole person. We offer individual and group therapy, holistic healing such as yoga, nutrition, and spirituality, medication management, and PTSD treatment. By building upon your strengths and rebuilding broken bonds, we help you begin a successful life. With our staff of licensed psychotherapists and doctors, you can be assured of the highest level of care. Elite Care is the best option for long-term rehabilitation from drugs and alcohol. Contact 888-511-0607 for more information.
another case I know we were talking about earlier, as well as the Paul Walker case. That was kind of different too. What happened there?
So the Paul Walker case, that actually centered around the guardianship of his minor daughter, Meadow, and she was a teenager at the time. And from what we know is there was a court case following his death over who should raise her. Her grandmother, which was Paul Walker's mother, had cared for her even while Paul was alive. Paul and her Meadow's mother were not together. And so what happened was when Paul died, Meadow's mother is the legal guardian of the child. It's the other parent that's going to be the legal guardian. The mother had challenged that she wanted to be the guardian as she had been in the past, the grandmother.
Oh, wow.
So there was a dispute over that, and what ultimately happened is the case settled and out of court, and Meadow went with her mother.
With the mother at the
Yes,
end.
with her natural mother.
And what, he did not have an estate plan set up.
Paul,
Do we know that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if Paul Walker had an estate plan set up with the guardianship. He may have very well appointed his mother, even if by default she would have gone to her mother.
To paraphrase that quote from Great Gatsby, the rich are different from us. It doesn't apply here, I guess.
Right, and not when it comes to estate planning. They really aren't different from us.
Not different from us. You've had some interesting stories about your estate planning, as we're going to get into a little later about messages you want us to talk to women about, divorced moms, young girls out there, but we'll get to those in a little bit. First, we want to find out, you had some conflicting convictions?
Oh, in terms of when you set up estate planning?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because there's a lot right now in the media about what happens if your personal views conflict, for example, with what your clients want to do, and where is your legal obligation to serving clients, and how do you weigh that against your your moral obligations. And so one of the things that when I sat on a panel recently, what was interesting is, for example, the anesthesiologist on the panel with me shared with the girls how she has to opt out every morning because she doesn't want to perform abortions, and about how that conflicts with her moral views, in that she's allowed to conflict out. And then I shared a few stories with the girls of times when I've been asked to make a gift for a purpose that strongly convicts with a view I have, which is funny because I'm not a very extreme person, so it's very few things that would be a true conflict for me. But just telling people that at the end of the day, whatever your profession is, you do have to be true to who you are as a person. And hopefully at your core you are a good, non-judgmental, loving person, of course.
Aren't we all? I think they did a study once on that. 90% of the people said they were non-judgmental.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah, probably 10% of us, right?
I think there was one fascinating study they had. They were asking people if they were above average drivers, and in this room of about 150 people, 85% said they were above average drivers. But the catch to it is half of that room had already had traffic accidents.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. Anyway, let's go into this conversation here, because we left conflicting convictions, and it takes us right into the message for divorced moms. Now, you were saying it hits somewhere at home for you, but what's going on with that conviction, or there with the message for the divorced moms?
Well, so one of the things I do at my law firm, I speak a lot, and we speak at workshops throughout Southern California, and you get a very mixed bag of people who come to set up guardianship for their kids. And I always know that at my workshops, I'll get at least one mom, and sometimes dads, but at least one mom who's going through a painful, unexpected divorce and has no idea what they should do to protect their kids in case something happens to them. And they also are struggling just seeing their future again. Divorce is something that's extremely painful for anyone who's involved in it. And so we're always in a great seat to be able to encourage our clients and share with them stories from other clients who have gone through painful divorces, in planning, whether it's financial planning or estate planning. Planning is a great way for people to face their future again and to take control of it. And it's very empowering to not just accept and come to peace with a divorce or even a death. But then to look forward to the future and have that confidence of I've laid out the plan, I have a good team to help me, and I'm going to control where I'm going from here on out.
That's quite reassuring. So let me ask you this. One of the things we've done is we've interviewed a lot of women. This is going to be on that series, a special month for women. Mm-hmm. And one of the questions we always ask is, how would you define a woman of today?
Well, I think how would I define a woman of today?
Everybody has
very
different
complex,
views.
right?
Very complex.
Very complex. Men are much more simple. I think a woman of today is probably somebody who wants to be in control of her future and wants to have a strong voice in her future and wants to be independent. I think, though, for me, I can only speak for me, yes, of course, I want to be personally happy and fulfilled, but I have found that practicing law, being a wife, being a mother, all of those things give me a strong sense of self. And I love having a family. I don't feel burdened. I do feel very burdened, actually, by it on a daily basis. But I think it's wonderful. And I'm glad and thankful that I'm living in a time where I can choose my path. I'm not going to be, I'm not being pigeonholed into how anybody else thinks I should be. The thought that women can only go so far. Sure. And oftentimes that, maybe perhaps men or circumstances are holding them back. And I get asked this all the time by younger women. They'll ask, did you face that discrimination or things like that? And I always share with them, I was at a meeting once with a high-up partner at my old major law firm. And I wanted a certain position assigned to me that was available. And I went to make my case, and his response was, "Oh, I thought you just wanted to be part-time because I had the children." Oh. And at that moment, it was a turning moment where I thought, I will never let anybody limit how far I can go. And that was a big reason I did start my own practice. And I'm so thankful that I did. And so, yes, I think women may face that at times, and men do too, by the way, especially if you're trying to balance your life and you don't want to work the long hours either. It is difficult, but I think it is great to be able, instead of using that as an excuse of not going further, for you to take a step back and say, you know what, then I'm going to go a different way. And that's always seemed to work for me.
It's a good message. And last thing is, what message would you give young girls to inspire them for words of encouragement? And I think you already said it. Not to be limited.
I think the biggest thing I see with women, whether they're younger or older, is they do not think they're good enough. They do not think they're qualified enough. There's an old saying that if you put a man and a woman and ask them how good looking they are, the man will always rate himself 2 notches up. So he'll say, "Oh, I'm an 8" when he's really a 6, and a woman will rate herself 2 notches down. If she's a 6, she's a 4. I want to tell young women, don't limit your thinking. It doesn't matter what your background is or how you were raised or where you're supposedly supposed to land. I think God puts in everybody their own purpose. And so for them to not be afraid to follow their own path and to not ever put themselves down. There'll be enough people in the world that want to hold them back. They should be their number one fan. And my husband's actually the one who always reminds me of that. Because I fall prey to that as well.
Is she fantastic or what? So where do we get hold of more information from the Meiers?
So if you want to learn a little bit more about estate planning and how to make sure that your kids are completely taken care of and just kind of what's involved, MeierFirm.com, our website, has a lot of great information. And then my book, Good Parents Worry, Great Parents Plan, which is on Amazon, a nice little plug. But it really is, I wrote it for parents in lay terms. In fact, my editor was a young mom with no legal background. And I said, good, because if you don't understand it, my readers won't. So it's really just a heart-to-heart from one parent to another of what you need to do to make sure your kids are taken care of.
I loved it. It's an excellent book. Highly recommend it. Good Parents Worry, Great Parents Plan. Thank you very much, Laura, for being here in the circle.
Thank you for having me. It's fun.
Once again, Good Parents Worry, Great Parents Plan. Highly recommend getting it. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Remember, our motto is simple. Wherever the psychology involved, even in estate planning, we're going to be there now and in the future. Bye.